Hi everyone. Oh, sorry. Hi everyone. My name is Gloria. Um, Many thanks for joining us for today's webinar with MPW. Joining us today is Mr. James Patton, the Global Director at MPW. So today is going to be telling us everything we need to know about studying medicine in the UK. And hi, James, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly, Gloria.
All right, so I'll be handing over to you.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
A minute, please. During the course of the webinar, if you have any questions, please kindly drop them in the chat box, and I'll be reading it out for Mr. James to answer. Thank you, Mr. James. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Gloria. Before you go, can you just tell me if you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
You can see it. Jolly good. Right. Hopefully, that is now showing as a slideshow, and then we go from there. So let's wait and see if that is working properly. Is it working as a slideshow, sorry, or is it showing you the whole PowerPoint page? Okay, well, I'll go for it anyway. Look, good morning, good afternoon, I should say, as the time is now past 12 o'clock. My name is indeed James Barton. I'm the Global Director of MPW. And having been in the industry now for about 17, going on 18 years, I've been involved with medical school entry now for quite some time. And over the course of time have written a few books on getting into medical school itself. The whole process of medicine is one, instructive, but two, it's interactive as well. So what I'd like to be able to do with this presentation is be able to make it both instructive and interactive as well. So if when there are questions to be answered, do please answer them. If you're not able to, and as this is being recorded, so it's for a recorded and indeed a live audience as well, if there are no answers coming, I'll give you a pause and then give the answer after it. So you get a sense as to how you can use this as a tool in the future. But before then, and before we get going on anything, we need to say this really, which is that the NHS, the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, needs you. And it really does, because over the course of time, we've watered down our provision into the National Health Service. In fact, it's one of the hot topics in the UK, and particularly as we come into the general election year this year, in terms of how we reform the National Health Service itself. If you don't know what the NHS is, it's time to start doing your research, because it's going to be one of the big questions that comes up in the course of your interview, and your employer for the next decade at the very least for you as well. But the NHS does need you. We need more numbers coming through. Since Brexit, we certainly need to start re-advertising ourselves out to the rest of the world as well. And so this is a great opportunity and a great time to be thinking about coming and studying medicine in the UK. Sometimes it's seen as a little bit difficult, but let's try and take you through this and see whether we can actually reinvent this one for you. Before then, I want to do a slightly interactive exercise with you. So to start with, please, I'd like you to grab a piece of paper and indeed a pen. Now, I appreciate that probably at this stage, it's not working quite as neatly as I'd like this to. So I'm going to just try and screen share again. And I'd really appreciate it if someone could tell me whether they can actually see the current slide that I have up at this moment in time.
Yes, we can see it.
Great, super. Right, a piece of paper, please, an A4 piece of paper. I need you to have a pen with you as well. And all I would like you to do is to draw a human body on this piece of paper. Now, before you start, it can be a stick man, it can be a 3D man if you, or a lady, I should say, if you're good at art, but it really is in the practice of this, not in the artistic flair. Okay, so the first thing I'd like you to do is start by drawing the head of this human body. So head, face, bit of hair, and the neck. And then once you've drawn that, I'd like you to fold that piece of paper over halfway down the neck so you can just see the bottom of the neck sticking out. Now, you can do this as we carry on throughout the presentation. This is just something to be doing as an ongoing exercise. It actually comes from a child's-based exercise, and hopefully you'll see the point of it and the reason why we're doing this afterwards, because visual aids often help us straight through complex topics like medical school entry. The next thing I'd like you to do is, when you can only see the neck, I'd like you to draw the body where you can no longer see the head anymore. So therefore you're just drawing the body completely in isolation. So the body, down to the trunk, just the top of the thighs, you need arms in there, you need hands. And what does this body look like? Let's try and visualize it. Again, it can be a stick person, but you're folding this paper over at the top of the thighs from there. After the thighs, you're then going down to the legs, okay? The legs are going to take you all the way down to the ankles. I've actually left the feet on this one, but you're going down to the ankles now. So just the legs, please. Again, in isolation, you can't see the head, you can't see the trunk, you can only see the legs. Once you've drawn the legs, fold it over, leave a little bit at the bottom, and then the next bit will be to draw the feet in there. Once you've done all of that, all in isolation, you'll have a folded up piece of paper and a little space at the bottom. On that little space at the bottom, I would then like you just to, once you've got a picture like this, I'd like you to actually be able to write a one-line description of this body. Once you can see what it looks like, write a one-line description of this body that you've drawn in isolation as you've gone through. As I say, do this as the presentation continues, but do it because it will come back around for us in a little bit of time. Now, before we get going, really all we need to do is to start by warming your brain up. And this is really important to do, particularly when you're going for medical school entry. And this comes from a medical school interview itself. So here are your instructions, and here is the puzzle. Place the billiard balls that are in this particular graphic in the circles to make 30, please. You have 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, and 15. To make 30. Can you please do that? In medical school fashion, you have exactly, let's say 2 minutes on the clock, but if you can do it quicker, then good for you. So off we go there. So instructions. Place the billiard balls in the circle to make 30. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15 to equal 30. When you're done, please either unmute your microphone or pop it into the chat box just so we can see. There is no shame in incorrect guesses. It is all about giving it a go. And that is how we actually work our way through anything, not only in medical school terms, but in anything in education, particularly in interviews, is we need to see how you think. You need to see what the process is and then help you realign it as we go on from there. So anyone feeling brave enough yet with an answer, do let me know and we'll go forward. I think Frey and Faith, I think you two are my students for this particular one. So do either of you two have an answer for this one? In fact, you're quite lucky, because if we were doing this throughout a medical school trial, for example, we might ask you to tell us a story or tell us something in the news or keep yourself going, because part of the trick to a medical school interview is to be able to demonstrate that you can solve puzzles while also doing two things at once. Does anyone have it? If you don't, here is the answer. Can it be solved? No, it cannot be solved mathematically. So if that's where you're stumbling at this moment in time, it can't be solved mathematically. Therefore, is it impossible? No. How else could it be done? Well, it can be done in this particular fashion. So if we were to take an 11 and then we were to take 13, that gets us to 24. That gets us relatively close. Is there any other way of us doing this? Well, if you think creatively about this and you take the 9, you turn it round and you get a 6 to make 30. What is the point of this exercise? Well, the first point about it is you're not being asked to do anything mathematically, okay? You've been asked to place the billiard balls in the circle, not to add them up. Therefore, it is absolutely crucial, particularly in medical terms, to read the instructions in front of you. The second thing, and if you think like a general practitioner or a doctor in any sense really, you sometimes have to come up with creative solutions to the problem. And this is a great example of how actually with a bit of thought and a bit of outside the box thinking, you can come to the right answer. A gentle, general warm up for you. And hopefully your brain is now engaged so we can solve the medicine myth, which is that it is too hard to come and study medicine, and it's too hard to study medicine in the United Kingdom. Is it? I think the answer is yes and no towards that. It's not too hard, but it is hard. And it's hard if you don't know what you are doing. I think that is the thing we have to bear in mind. A political point for you here, because it is important, particularly if you're coming into medicine. The government and the future government coming in have committed to putting an extra 15,000 places on for medical students in the United Kingdom. But that has stalled. And that, while it was supposed to roll out in the coming year, has been dramatically reduced. So they're only putting on 350 extra places next year, and that 15,000 rollout won't be until 2031. So there's a bit of a lead-in time to this, but there are more places coming on. So it is a good time to be able to apply, and we are looking for more and more overseas students. But while there are more places, it doesn't always mean that it's easier to get into. In fact, you still just have to hit the entry requirements, because otherwise we're watering down this skill. We're de-skilling doctors in terms of doing that. But if you want to have a general sense of numbers, here you go. If we're to look at the previous entry numbers for the previous academic cycle, you're looking at around 73, 75,000 people applying for medicine year in, year out, and getting offers back something in the region of 8,000. In fact, there's going to be 9,500 places in the following year. So we've got a bit of flexibility within there, but 9,500 versus about 75,000 people applying. The distribution between domestic and international applicants is vastly weighted in the domestic favour. But again, it doesn't mean that if you're an international student, you are at a distinct disadvantage. What it means is that we need to piece together your education from where you are now and make it relevant for what the university is looking for. And normally that's either going to be in a foundation course, but be careful with foundation courses because the majority of them don't lead you naturally on to medical school. There are quirks to that and there are slight differences, but for the vast majority, they won't. And therefore, between the ending of your schooling and the start of your medical school degree, it will either have to be A-levels, so that's 2 or 1 year A-levels, or find a medical degree that has a qualifying first foundation year as well. Feel free to ask any questions as you like as we go along, but there does need to be bridging a gap between where you are and the start of the medical degree if you're not already studying A-levels currently. Why is that? Because universities see that A-levels give you the required foundation that you need in order to start on the medical school course itself. They don't have the same faith in other qualifications internationally, and therefore just to firm up that foundation, they like you to do something else first. This is the process at MPW. It's only useful because it will give you a bit of a sense as to how you can do it independently if you're not going to be part of us, which is to start from the beginning.
MPW.
Sorry, I beg your pardon. Hello? Let me start that one again. So to start with, we assess your goals and your aspirations within here in terms of looking at where you really want to be. You've got to know why you want to do this because it's a long process, and therefore just try and set your goals realistically and work towards them. That is absolutely key. Work experience is going to be a valuable part of what you do, and we'll go into all of these, but then have regular ongoing meetings with a mentor as you go through. Try and join in on some sort of medical school society. We have something called MedSoc. You can also do some of these things online as well, and even just talking with a colleague or talking with a peer in your school about medical-based topics is going to keep your knowledge nice and fresh. Attend open days to universities. Go to UCAS preparation courses that will be online as well for you to be able to see. Then you've got to start practicing. Practice for these tests because there's an admissions test required to get into medical school as well. It's called the UCAT. There is no BMAT, and we'll look at that as to why. There's a personal statement that you have to write as you do for any university, but it's a very targeted personal statement based upon the work experience that you've been doing. Complete your application, and then it's the famous medical school interview, which you need to pass in order to be able to get a place. Once that's all matched together and you've got your grades, then off you go to medical school from there. The first place for you to start, and it is an important point, is to start researching it. Go on and look at open days online. There's a couple of links on this slide and it will be made available to you afterwards, but there's a couple of links here for you to start looking at which universities are offering which open days and when. It is important to do so because number one, you are interviewing a university from the outset. You've got to really want to go there. This is going to be the next 5 years of your life. So ultimately, find a place you're going to be happy studying in. And number two, because you're going to want to go into more detail on the course itself. Make sure you're doing your research. Make sure you're talking to people. You're always very welcome to contact us here at MPW as well, even if you just want some advice on medical school entry. But there's lots of valuable resources online for this. And in doing your research, you're going to find there's different types of medical course in the UK. There's the traditional based courses, which are usually reserved to the older universities, so the Oxfords and Cambridges and Imperials of this country. The traditional based courses are in the minority, and those are just simply based upon academic theory. So there's going to be more time spent in the lecture theatre going through the textbooks than there is in the practical side of things. Then you've got the other end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is the ones that were pioneered for those who don't like the academic theory quite as much and would try and take a different approach, which is problem-based learning, PBL, or case-based learning, which was coined by Cardiff, which is pretty much the same thing within
Case-based learning.
And a case-based learning, that's absolutely right. And so these are more practical qualifications, which you learn by training practically from the start. And to give you an example, you're given a case as a group in mini groups that you have to go away, research yourself, work out the answer to it, and then come back and present to the group. It's a different way of working. And when you're coming back and doing that research and presenting to the group, you then have your lecturer or your practitioner there who's able to realign what you're doing and try and show you it practically at the same time. So that's for a different type of learner. It's becoming far more the way of working in this modern age. And that is why the most traditional course that we have now is, or the most common, I should say, is the integrated course, which blends the traditional and the problem-based learning together. And the vast majority of medical schools in the United Kingdom take that approach. So when you're doing your research, think as to what kind of learner you are and what you want your medical school experience to be like. Because at the end of the day, try and forget the name of the university and try and get to a university. Because to study medicine in the United Kingdom puts you into the National Health Service, which gives you the same quality of learning, I suppose, wherever it is that you might be studying. It is valuable and it gets you straight into the system. So moving beyond the interactive, we come to the work experience and the voluntary work. This is crucial because you can't go to medical school unless you've experienced what it's like. If you're not going to like the sight of blood and seeing people throw up, it's not the route for you. And it sounds facetious, but there are so many examples of students who go, try the work experience out and realize it's not for them. Being a doctor comes with certain stigmas. So we want you to start as early as you can. If you haven't started already, depending on your age, that's absolutely fine. Just start as early as you can. Any work experience is valuable, provided you know why you're doing it. And indeed, online work experience counts. As we've come out of COVID-19, we're now in the stage whereby there are other opportunities for people to actually experience different things. Sometimes it can be hard to get practical face-to-face work experience, particularly if you're overseas. So if you're overseas now, do the online work experience because it will give you a head start in your medical school application itself. And what you're really doing is you're shadowing a doctor. You're experiencing what it's like to be in a surgery. You're experiencing what an MDT is like. And an MDT is a multidisciplinary team, and you see how many different types of people come together in order to actually improve people's health. So doctors work in teams, and we're looking for you to pull out from these experiences what you're actually learning from them. So it's not what you're doing, it's what you are learning from them. And for that very point, we need you to keep a journal. So every time you do something, write it down into your journal as to what you did, but what you learned from it. Because when you write your personal statement, it is based upon what you've learned. That will form what we need to see from you in the interview stage. Doctors should be analysts as they go along and learn as they go along. Couple of steers for you with work experience. Hospital experience is vital. You need to see that in order to be able to move forward. Working with a GP, so a general practitioner, is more of an administrative task. So if you can't get GP work, working in an office, something like that, will show you what admin is required. So that would work instead of GP if you can't. Try and work with the elderly and try and work with young children as well. There's a reason for this. If you work with the elderly and if you work with young children, then you will see that there is a pretty similar way of approaching both the elderly and young children. Young children start fine. What you're going to start noticing is that the mind regresses over time, and how we actually treat your grandparents, if you think about it, is pretty similar as to how you treat.
Hi, James. Hi, James. We cannot hear you. Please, can you unmute? Hi, James. We can't hear you. Okay.
Hello. There we go. Sorry, I must have sat on the button, which is suitably embarrassing and now live recorded. So if I go back to where we are here, we are on MedSoc. So MedSoc is what we offer at MPW. It just means Medicine Society. A lot of schools do that. If you're going into a school at the age of 16, 17, 18, join into that particular school's MedSoc Society. If you don't have access to a MedSoc Society, there are some links online that you can join as well. Basically, these are online resources or just basically interactive forums where you can discuss with other students who are doing the same application, share good practice, talk with each other, discuss ideas, discuss medical topics. Your knowledge on the NHS and the medical system and current affairs needs to be absolutely up to date. not only for your interview where you'll be asked questions on this, but also when you actually get into the medical career itself, you're going to need to stay up to date on all trends that are going on. And there's a lot of them, and a lot of them raise ethical questions within that. So, for example, this is how we do it at MPW. We have a discussion-based group exploring wider issues related to the world of medicine. We have external presenters coming in, so doctors or other practitioners within the area to come in and actually talk to students on a regular basis, which forms the guest speaker side of things. We get students to present, so you buddy up, you work in a group. So we get people to go away week in, week out and actually research a topic, come back, present to the group. It's the problem-based, the case-based approach to it. You can do that even if you're not at MPW or a school. You can just find a friend. It doesn't even have to be a friend who's in medicine. Just find someone who you can talk to. And your job is very simple. It is to get them to understand exactly what it is that you are saying to them, and for them to be able to repeat back to you what it is you want them to have learned. If you haven't managed to do that, then your job becomes making them understand it. So go through it as many times as possible. It's a valuable exercise, not only for interviews where you have to be succinct, but also in your education in general, so you can clarify what is in your head with what you want people to actually read. And we also do interview preparation events and trips within there too. The other thing that you need to be doing now is to read widely. We've talked about the NHS, the National Health Service. We've mentioned about keeping up to date with everything. So new treatments, read about diseases. We're now out of COVID-19, touch wood. So what else? What is coming around for you at this particular moment in time? Don't only stick to your country, but it is relevant for you to stick to your country because it is what makes you unique, but also really focus on where you want to study in the future, which is the United Kingdom, and what is affecting us at this moment in time. Try and make links between our system and the system you're used to back in your home country as well, because these are relevant, they're interesting, and they show your personality. Again, keeping a journal, and there's a nice link there at the bottom to the BBC website. So the main sort of gateway that we call it for news in this country, Sky News, BBC News, there's a health tab on there. Keep up to date. That is a really useful gateway resource that will take you off in different directions as well. And that's just a screen grab graphic of what it actually looks like within there. Okay. The British Medical Journal, the New Scientist, these are other good scientific-based resources. You will be quizzed on these in interviews, so do it. The more you can get familiar with it before starting in the UK or before starting your medical course, the better it will be for you. So you've done your research, you've read widely, you've got a chat going on with friends, you've done some work experience, some voluntary experience. The next part of your process is the pre-admissions test. So before you even get to the point of applying, you are taking an admissions test. There is only one now in the United Kingdom. There used to be two, which was with the BMAT as well, the biomedical admissions test, but that was scrapped on the basis of really funding and finance behind it all. And so those universities which used to take the BMAT, and those were the more traditional based, the Oxfords, the Cambridges, the Imperials, and various others within this country, those are now, they've all rejoined back onto the UCAT test, so the University Clinical Aptitude Test within there, the UCAT test. And the UCAT test is there to test how you think, all right? We are looking at what answers you give and why, as opposed to you strictly getting the answer correct every time. And it's a test that evolves around you. It is not one you can revise for, because it is one that changes year in, year out. But it is definitely one that you can practice for. And the more practice you do, the more familiar you get, the better. And this one is because it is done under timed pressure. You have to complete the questions in a relatively short time scale. You don't have long to think about them. So the more muscle memory you can build now as to how to answer the UCAT test, the better it will be for you. And here's a couple of good resources, links for you as to where you can actually get some practice tests. There's no authorized third-party resources, but there are a lot of resources online for you to do this. This is a good one. You can also get books. If you have Amazon as a resource, there is 1,000 UCAT questions, 500 UCAT questions, all these different types of books on there for you to be able to actually grab go through and do. And always, once you've done that, look at the answers. Don't cheat your way through this particular test because ultimately it won't help you when you get into the test itself. Here's the format, okay? You have different sections. You have verbal reasoning, decision-making, quantitative reasoning, abstract judgment, reasoning rather, situational judgment. And those all carry different amounts of questions and different times within there. Unless you have extra time, then your timings for those are down that middle column. So 22 minutes, 32 minutes, 25 minutes, 14 minutes, and 27 minutes respectively gives you a 2-hour test of 120 minutes. Now, that to some people is daunting, and it can be, but nerves are a good thing. They drive you to do your best, and therefore it's a good idea that we look at some of these questions. So once again, now we're back to the interactive side. So I'm going to take a step back for a second here as well and see if anyone can actually answer these questions. The question is on the left. Your multiple choice answers are on the right. Which one do you think it is? If I have anyone who would like to be able to volunteer the answer, please do. Otherwise, because of the live recording, I will simply take a pause and then put the answer up for you to be able to see. And then we can always do why that is in discussion later. Now, generally speaking, you'd be looking at 2 minutes per question. So what would you say the answer is to this? A, B, C, or D? A, B, C, or D? If you are on the live recording, all I would suggest is you press pause at this moment in time if you have not figured out the answer, because I'm going to put the answer up. And the answer to this particular one is A. Okay, A. From the passage, teleology can be defined as arguing that all events have a purpose. Question 2, decision making. It is useful that we do these, so it gives you a bit of a sense as to what you are waiting for. So on the left is the question, on the right are your 4 answers, A, B, C, or D. For this question, 2 more minutes on the clock. Again, if you're on the live side of things, just press pause and come to it afterwards. Which of the following statements must be true? I'm only not reading the question out, so you can take a pause from my voice at this particular moment in time. So A, B, C, or D? We have an answer here, which is C. Anyone for anyone else? C. Mr. Warlock sits next to Mr. Percival. Any other answers within there? Thank you, Nonya. So to take a pause, if you haven't answered it, the answer to this is in fact A. Okay, Miss Zensa sits at the far left of the row. That one must be true. Again, for any solutions to this, just because of time, we can answer those separately later, and I can send on the solutions to you. Question 3, quantitative reasoning. The table shows the total cost of renting different types of motorboats for a certain number of hours. The total cost is calculated using the deposit and the cost of renting per hour. Some of that information is missing in the table, which leads to the question on the right side. If the deposit for Type D motorboats is increased by 5% on Sundays, what will be the total cost of renting a Type D motorboat for 6 hours on a Sunday? And for this, you have A, B, C, D, and E. Which will your figure be? And at this point, you're 3/5 of the way through your UCAT exam, obviously with more questions. A, B, C, D, or E? Nonya, over to you again. Do you have anything else on this particular one? Okay, pausing if you haven't got the answer, because the answer is B, £699.75. Again, with the solution to follow afterwards. Okay, not to worry. And then, so we have an abstract reasoning question as well. Abstract reasoning is based upon puzzles of pictures and shapes. So your test shape is on the right. It's asking you which of these puzzles does that shape belong to, set A, set B, or neither of them. What you're looking for here is to try and identify patterns and to see why it is that that belongs to that particular group or not. Okay. The reason for neither being in there is because it can viably be neither. Unlike that first example I showed you where we warmed up our brains with the billiard balls, sometimes there is not a solution to everything, and sometimes that solution is it doesn't fit the puzzle. So from this, A, B, or C, is it set A, set B, or neither? Okay. And just again, pausing, because here is the answer if you haven't got it already. The answer is C, neither. It doesn't fit either set within there. Therefore, it goes down as C. The solution can be provided afterwards. And then also there is a situational judgment. Situational judgment is simply looking at your response to something. Okay, sometimes there can be different answers to situational judgment. So what we're looking for in there is just how you would tackle a situation. All right, rather than going through this one, it will be there on the live recording. So please take your time, pause, have a look at it, read it through, and give what you feel is an appropriate response to it. Okay, discuss this with others as well if you really want to be able to get other people's opinion. The answer being C. It's inappropriate but not awful within there. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a sense. The only reason we're whipping through that is so that you're able to do this at a different time. There's lots of online examples. Please take your time and go through those. Right. So do we remember this guy? Okay, this guy is your stick person. What I want you to do is put your stick person to one side and put next to you, as you just saw from me, a picture of yourself. Okay, try and make an embarrassing picture. Just debase yourself, essentially. Okay, put yourself out there so that what you're trying to do in this example is think as to how a personal statement and an application to medical school is made up. We use the human body because it's a body, isn't it? It's related to medical school in some facet. So the head, the human brain makes its decision on whether it likes something within the first few seconds of meeting that person. It only colors in the picture when that person starts talking. So it's already made a superficial judgment. Therefore, what we're looking for in a personal statement, and personal statements are changing this year, but it is useful to use the old-fashioned style of personal statement and then make it fit the new structure, because it will help you work your way through the application from such a long period of time out. So what we're looking for is how we can attract that decision maker in to start with. So what is it that attracted you to medicine in the first place? Okay. Then bring up your own picture here. So a young looking version of me here. So you take it from the outset. How can we pull that reader in? What is it that's attracted you to medicine? Then, to be superficial again, we have the body. The body is there because it's representative of the body of work. What have you done in order to study for medicine so far? So what have you learned in biology or chemistry? What medical school knowledge have you picked up over the course of time? Then it goes down into the legs, the legwork, the cliched phrase, but legwork means effort, application. What have you done to research this particular course? What work experience have you done? And now we're into the stage of saying what you've actually taken from that work experience, not just what you've learned from it. By the way, if you've done any extra qualifications or if you've done an EPQ or any research projects, these are going to be really invaluable to put into your personal statement as well, because they show your aptitude as a student for medicine, and talk about those a little bit more. Then the feet. The ankles and the feet are always there because it's the extra bit about you. That's about how much space we need to know about your extracurricular pursuits. So your sport or your music or your drama or your certificates or whatever it is. It's a tiny bit at the bottom, usually given too much attention from people. We don't need that much, so in a representative term, just your ankles and your feet. And then that description we asked you to write before, that description is there so that you can sum up. It's your elevator pitch as to why you should be accepted onto the course itself. It's a one-line closing statement to the jury that ends up at the back end of the statement. So just summarizes the whole thing. So go back to your stick figure, use a picture of yourself so it helps you visualize it and start filling in the gaps as they are here, so that you're able to start shaping it. And then you're able to insert the information that you've got here into the new style of UCAS. The personal statement. So keep a log of your relevant experience. Write a draft, write many drafts, get someone to look through them. Okay, schools, academic mentors, agents, us if you'd like to just send them in for us to read about it. But you're trying to say why you want to do it. The work experience, the academic interest, the extracurricular, just keep getting feedback as you go along, all the time getting feedback. Can I ask which you think the most relevant of these four is? Commitment, evidence of research, future plans, and suitable skills and qualities. Which is the most important for medical school in the United Kingdom? Commitment, evidence of research, future plans, and suitable skills and qualities. Okay. The answer is they're all correct, but the most important word in all four of these is evidence of research, okay? And evidence being the critical word in a medical school application, because it is that work experience. That's why we place such value on it, because it's all very well saying you've done it, but you're going to have to talk about it, and you'll very quickly get found out if you have not done it at all. So there's an element of creative license to it, but it does need to have evidence behind it. Be factual. Don't use these phrases, my love for, my passion for, it would be an honor to study medicine. It's always been my dream. Why? Because everyone uses it. And therefore, how are you standing out if you're using the same as everyone else within there? Also, try and not reference, I want to go into it because of my family, or I was ill once and therefore I want to go into it. It doesn't mean it's not true. It just means it's overused. And if you're referencing the family particularly, while it can be the case, and it usually is the case, that there's a familial link into medicine, what we look for in a personal statement is in the title there. There's the clue. It's personal. We want to know why you've come to that decision, not how you've been led to that decision. So try and think around exactly why it is that you'd like to study it. Keep your sentences nice and short and simple. Don't try and impress the universities with the way that you write. Let the content be the thing that impresses them. But having said that, English spelling, punctuation, grammar is all critically important, and a black mark if you haven't got it. And therefore, please always be able to get someone else to sense check your work. In the age of ChatGPT, don't use ChatGPT, because the plagiarism software at UCAS will pick that up very, very quickly indeed. Keep asking yourself this question. Keep getting someone else to ask you this question as well, which is, and so what? Okay, every time you write something, get someone to question every single sentence, and therefore you place the value on that particular sentence. Why have I written it? What is it saying? Is it taking me forward? You have 4,000 characters with spaces in the old style of the personal statement. That is a good guide for us to use when we're drafting out the personal statements for the new style of personal statement questions. So just, you don't have a lot of space is what we're trying to say here. Therefore, give value to everything that you write. Get someone to tell you whether it's making sense or not. And if it's not, reword it, change it, remove it. That is your job. Wolf of Wall Street, okay? I use this one a lot, which is to sell me this pen. Now, the film does it amazingly. It's all very Hollywood. It doesn't do it properly. Why? Because that's not the purpose of the exercise as much as anything. It is a really great exercise, though, and is still very much used today, not in medical school interviews, but in city-based interviews and other corporates. It's a very straightforward exercise, but it has a lot of purpose. And the reason we mention it is because, let's take it from the beginning. If you were to sell me a pen, how would you do it? You'd probably panic a little bit. You tell me everything about the pen, everything you can see about the pen, tell me about the color of the pen. And would you make a sale? Probably not. Probably 1 time out of 10 you might, and it's only because the other person feels obliged to buy it. The next grade up of salesperson within there will start creating a narrative about this pen. And in the age of social media, maybe they want to create an element of mystery or celebrity about this pen. Maybe there's an influencer that uses it, and therefore you can try and sell it and piggyback off the back of someone else. Then you're selling to about half your target audience potentially. But the best salespeople out there don't even talk about the pen. Okay, and this is the point. They don't talk about the pen. They talk to the other person, the person in front of them, and talk about them. Get to know them, ask them questions, okay? Find out what they do, find out what their name is, find out where they come from. And in asking all these questions, you can identify whether that person wants the pen in the first place. And if they do, you can now sell it back to them, because selling is based upon personality as much as anything else, personality and need. If they don't, then you've had a nice chat, but you've already worked out that this isn't the right sale for you, and you move on to someone else, so you forget about it. The same applies when you're actually pitching yourself over in a job application, in a university application. Do your research, find out whether you're suitable for that university and whether they are suitable for you. If you are, listen to what they're saying. Read about how they're guiding you to tell them what they want to hear from you in order to sell yourself across. So literally walk yourself, tailor your application into that particular university itself. All right. Same applies in an interview format. If it's not the right university for you, cross it off on the shortlist. We have 47 of them to look at, so we can then go on to something else. And that includes both the traditional universities and the private-based universities. We are only giving that footnote at this point in the presentation, just so you know that private universities charge you a lot more. They are very good. They have a lot of research about, they have a lot of technology behind them within there. They have a lot of investment, is the word I'm looking for, into the actual programs, and therefore they have good resources. But the reality as well is they will charge you more for it. So thinking of yourself as a commodity to be sold, you come into the medical interview itself. The famous medical interviews are based upon two types. One is more common nowadays than the other. One is a panel-based interview, which is a bit more like a job interview, and it might have a senior lecturer, it might have a doctor, it might have a lay person, so someone from a different industry come in and ask you different questions. But the most common form nowadays is based upon the multiple mini interview, the MMI, if you've ever seen that acronym before. This is based upon a series of stations set up. It's a bit like and this, I don't want to use this term wrongly, but it's a bit like speed dating for getting into medical school within there. And you go around different tables. Some might ask you scientific-based questions. Some might give you scenarios. Some might ask you on the NHS. There's also a station where you have to prove your manual dexterity, so your ability with hands. So you might have to build Lego towers or do some sewing or something like that within there. So try and have a think as well in preparation for this about whether you have any skills and attributes like playing music or art or something that you can put in your personal statement, but would also help you for the MMI. And you'll find lots of examples of MMIs and past MMIs online, but on online forums as well, when students discuss experiences from previous years. These are invaluable because it's someone giving you first-hand knowledge. And while the interview will change year in, year out, it will follow a very similar structure. So getting on some interview-based courses as well is going to be really useful for you. But there's another really big part of the medical application, which is medical ethics. And this is so that we can check that your ethical compass, your moral compass, ethics, is in the right place. Because as a doctor, you are expected to make very rational decisions based upon the right reasons, and you need to think these through. And so a lot of your training, both before you get to medical school, if you're at MPW, a lot and part of what we do is to do ethical training with you as well, will be based upon this, so that in interview you're able to answer ethical based scenarios, and when you get to medical school, these ethical based scenarios will continue. Here is one for you, without being able to speak to anyone online at the moment, unless anyone felt so brave as to talk to me. I'll just chat you through this one, and you can do it with someone else at another point. You see your best friend stealing from a supermarket. What do you do? Does anyone fancy answering this question for me? Or otherwise, I will take you through it. Okay. So what we're looking for in this particular scenario is break it down. Your best friend is stealing from the supermarket in front of you. What questions are going through your mind? Well, number one, you probably want to work out why they're actually stealing in the first place. Okay, what is it that's meaning that they are doing that? Once you work out that, you can actually then work out the scenario. You get a lot of people who approach this question who say, stealing is wrong, I'll tell the shopkeeper, and therefore you'll get in trouble. Then you get other people who go, I just let the person leave because I'll have a word with him, I'll tell him that stealing is wrong, but I can't do anything about it. He's my friend at the end of the day. Now, in both those scenarios, is one right over the other one? No. In fact, they're probably both wrong. One is what you're expected to do, of course, which is to tell the shopkeeper. The other one is not right because while you're actually saying, stop it, I don't agree with this, and why are you doing this? You're not stopping them, and therefore you're enabling them. The biggest question you've got in all of this is not whether you do the right thing and talk to the shopkeeper, but it's also whether you do the right thing by your friend, which is to work out exactly why they're stealing in the first place. Perhaps they've fallen on hard times. Perhaps they don't have money anymore. Perhaps they're having a difficult time at home. Maybe there's something underlying underneath. So if you then go immediately to approach the shopkeeper and get your friend in trouble, you might be opening up a much more harder situation for them at home. Imagine this child is being beaten at home, and therefore you're introducing them back into violence just by enabling what they're doing at this moment in time, or getting them into trouble for doing what they're doing. So try and dig around a little bit in there. Your responsibility is, as much as doing the right thing, is to your patient in front of you, your friend in this particular moment. If it turns out that your friend is just a kleptomaniac and absolutely loves stealing, then you have another problem here, which is, what do you do about that? Because that's become a pattern, it's become a vice, it's become an addiction. So then you need to work out who you can tell. Maybe you want to actually say to your friend, you need to stop this, otherwise I'll tell your parents. Or you need to approach the shopkeeper and say that this is what I see. What you wouldn't do is just go and pay for it, because again, you're just enabling that particular behavior right there and then. So you've got to be able to work your way through it. There's not always cut and dry answers on these. You just got to be able to talk through the scenario from each and every angle, remembering that the person, the perpetrator in this moment in time, is also the patient, because there could be something that you just don't know about. And as a doctor, you need to dig deeper, find out what that might be, and then be able to analyze and treat from there. General preparation tasks. So reflect on your personal statement, reflect on your work experience, remember that journal that you had, keep reading widely, increase your exposure to English. So the more you actually have these conversations in academic English on medicine, the better. So buddy up, find a friend, find a teacher, do that, learn about medical ethics. Prepare for the interview itself by just doing increasing amounts of practice. So again, buddy up, find a school person, find a bunch of questions if you're not going to be part of a school in order to do it. Completely online MMI interview questions as well. There are lots of them out there. Just type it into Google or whatever search engine you use and make sure that you're able to pull up a load of those, and then get someone else to answer them, give you feedback at the end of the day. Just get as much practice in there as possible, because in the old adage, practice makes perfect, and it really, really does. And with only 5 minutes to spare, appreciating that this is an online link as well, with a few technical issues along the way, we arrive at the end. So thank you very much. Medical school in the United Kingdom. Let me just contextualize and summarize to say at the very end of all of this. Medical school in the United Kingdom is a wonderful experience. It's varied, it's broad, it has a lot of needs behind it as well. We do have a lot of requirement for new doctors coming through, hence the government's commitment, even though it's watered down at the moment, to bring on another 15,000 places over the course of the next decade now, as it seems to be, for the very simple reason that the NHS is a victim of its own success, which simply means that the better it gets at treating people, the more in demand it is, and therefore it is subject to a lot of pressures. Okay, we need to address those pressures, but we simply need to bring more doctors on stream as quickly as possible, and that hopefully should be you in the future. If you have any questions, please do ask me now. I don't know if I have any questions, but if I do not, then Gloria, I think I need to pass back over to you. But hang on, I might have something here. What's the entry requirements, school fees, and turnaround time? Well, the entry requirements, it depends on what you're doing. So if you're going to be doing A levels, and if you remember back to the start, what I'm saying is it won't work just simply transferring from current academic qualification to university, because universities don't make that link. You either need to embark on a foundation program, which has certain requirements. There is not many foundation programs that do this. There's two types. One is a university-based first-year foundation. Those are in the minority, but basically that means you go through the first year, and subject to your qualifying percentage, about 60, 65%, that will then take you into the first year of the medical school course. Or you have college-based foundation courses, such as the one we run, which is the NCUK. That's run quite a lot of places, actually. The NCUK does offer partnership onto some medical courses out there. They tend to be the private medical schools as much as anything, so they are in the minority, but they do allow you on. That, again, needs top grades coming out of it, because top grades simply just mean that you've got the foundation required for medical school. And then the more common route, if I can convince you towards it, is to actually go and take the 1-year A levels instead of a foundation course. Same period of time, just a different system, really. And the 1-year A levels are the gold standard in the United Kingdom, because they give you the required background to get onto the course. To get onto medical school from there, generally needs to be 3 A's, depending on the university. For the Oxfords and Cambridges of this world and the Imperials, it's an A star. It's sometimes 2 A stars and an A. And right down throughout the range of universities, the lowest it would go is 2 A's and a B, but they are in the minority. So point being, top grades for those within there. School fees, that one is hard, because that varies from institution to institution, depending on whether you're classified as a domestic candidate or an international one. And the range, the difference between international and domestic can sometimes be between 10 and 15,000 per year. To be a domestic applicant going through, you're about 10,000 per year. To be an international student, some might be on the 15,000 range, some might be on the 25,000 range. You need to see each individual institution in turn there, because it can get expensive. That said, before I scare everyone with fees at the end, there are lots of opportunities for scholarships and the opportunity to bring down those fees, because we are trying to attract people to medical school, not put them off as a money-based exercise. That is not what the purpose of this is. And turnaround time. In terms of the application, the turnaround time, we try and be encouraging people to look at a year when you're actually trying to get through a medical school application itself. The reality is, if you're coming late to the decision, you can turn around an application in a week, but it's the work experience that you need to build in there. So the more you can do over the summer months, the minimum time I'd be suggesting is about 3 months in terms of turning around a complete application with all the required parts. If you have the parts already, it's simply just a matter of doing the application. The other thing to build in there to your question is the UCAT. The UCAT, as much practice as you can get. You can't put a time limit on that, but don't go into it cold. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit within that. Any other questions at all? Okay. Well, indeed, then thank you for listening to me witter on for an hour on medical school. You always have the opportunity to contact and for us to take you through it. Hopefully there's some use within there, but very best of luck in your application. Gloria.
Thank you so much, James. That was quite an interesting session with you. And if you need more clarification, or you have more questions, you can please send me an email, or you can call my number. So many of you got email from me, and my phone number is attached to the mail. So if you like to start your processing, or you have some clarifications, you can please reach out to me. Thank you, James. I don't know, do we still have more questions? I don't think we still have more questions.
Can't see any.
All right. No, we don't have more questions. I think that should be all for today.
Lovely. Well, have a very nice rest of your day, and thank you for all of your time and attention.
Thanks, James. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you.
day.
And you. Bye-bye.
Bye.